Neil Hamilton.
Well, the rather sour and dystopian speeches that we heard earlier on in this debate from the First Minister and from the leader of Plaid Cymru confirm them as the enemies of democracy, because neither of them has actually ever accepted the result of the referendum in 2016, when the people of Wales, as well as the people of the United Kingdom, voted to leave the EU, and they've done everything they possibly could in the 4.5 years since then to try to sabotage the entire process and to reverse the result. Without another referendum, indeed, is the ultimate position to which they have come. And Dawn Bowden made the important point, although she didn't seem to understand it, that sovereignty is what this is all about. That is the whole point. That's what the people voted for in 2016, to restore Britain's sovereign independence as a nation. And here we have in the Welsh Parliament the rather bizarre position of a so-called nationalist party, the Welsh Nationalist Party, that doesn't actually believe in the political independence of Wales, because they would much rather see Wales governed from Brussels by people that we don't elect, can't dismiss, and for the most part can't even name. Whereas now, as a result of this deal, taking us further along the road to the recovery of our national independence as a United Kingdom, we will be able to throw out those who make our laws if we don't like what they've done. And that is, I think, the most fundamental question of all in a democracy. And whilst this deal is far from perfect, it is an important building block along the way to the achievement of that objective. I'm amazed at the faint-heartedness of those who oppose this whole process, as though somehow the British people are incapable of making a success of themselves in the world. It's true that it was a failure of national self-confidence that provided the background to our going into the European Economic Community nearly 50 years ago, because in those days, Britain was a byword for industrial strife and economic decline. And as the American Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, famously said, Britain lost an empire and has yet failed to find a new role for itself. And I believe it's that attitude which has fundamentally undermined the whole generations through which I have grown up. Now we have the opportunity to make a new start, to put behind us the arguments that we've had over the last 50 years and strike out into the world, take advantage of the 85% of the global economy, which is not in the European Union. The European Union is a declining force in the world relative to the rest of it. 85% of the GDP of the world, as I've said, is not in Europe, and that proportion is going to increase in the years ahead. The great challenges are countries like India and China. And there are not just challenges there, but opportunities there as well. And now we'll be able to take advantage of them fully by entering into trade agreements, which we've been unable to do for the last 50 years, because that is something which the EU has done for us, for good or for ill. So this deal, as I've said, isn't perfect by any means. It is therefore unfinished business. There are good things in the deal. Of course, taking us out of the palsied grip of the European Court of Justice, on the one hand, is of course quite unambiguously a restoration of legal sovereignty. There are clauses in the deal which we need to, I think, concern ourselves about. The proposals for non-regression and rebalancing, technical terms, which basically require us, if we diverge from the standards of regulation which the EU adopts, to consider whether there might be trade or investment impacts which might lead to some kind of retaliatory action. In those areas, I think that it's likely that the United Kingdom government will not be bold enough to take advantage of the opportunities that our new freedoms give us. Divergence is what it's all about for me. The opportunity to be nimbler in the world, to be more competitive with the rest of the world than we would be inside the EU. These are the opportunities that we need to grasp and see them in a positive light. One of the major flaws in this deal, of course, is fishing, as has been pointed out by others in the debate. Fishing was sacrificed 50 years ago, British fishing was sacrificed 50 years ago, because the EU, or the EEC as it then was, cobbled together the common fisheries policy in the last few weeks before we entered into the community, and we had no voice in that or part to play in the design of the system which has devastated the British fishing industry and our coastal communities in the half century since. At the moment, we're only allowed...
You need to bring your comments to a conclusion now, Neil Hamilton. You're out of time.
So 50 years ago, Edward Heath said that we would not join the EEC unless we had the full-hearted consent of both parliaments and peoples. There was never the consent of the British people. It was never sought. It didn't have the full-hearted consent of our parliament because the bill which took us in had a majority, only 8 in a thoroughly whipped vote 50 years ago. The 2016 referendum is a vote of the people. That vote must be respected, and we will leave the European Union as a sovereign state on the 1st of January.
We will make America great again.